I'm so excited for you to try this recipe because it's going to elevate you from amateur home cook who's trying Chinese food to, whoa, you really know your Chinese food. Hello, I am back and today we are making some soup dumplings. Now, I won't lie, this is not an easy recipe, but you're ready for it. We're on our 4th recipe together. You're ready for a challenge. So there are 2 main, difficulties when it comes to soup dumplings. Number 1, getting the soup in the dumplings. As you know, I make all of my mom's recipes. She has actually managed to make this recipe a lot easier than the traditional way, which involves making jellified broth by chilling in the fridge overnight, cutting it up into little cubes, and then wrapping it in with your filling. This method, you can skip that altogether. Problem number 2, keeping the soup inside by having these really meticulous, neat pleats. That's the most technical part of this recipe, and I've been thinking all week of how to teach this. So I've come up with a couple of techniques and I'm really excited to share them with you. Even I get super proud when I do this successfully. When you see that translucent soup dumpling and you see the soup jiggling inside of it, pop in your mouth in one bite and it's just like an explosion of umami. It's so good. And I want you to experience that too. So I'm really excited. Let's get started. Step 1, we are going to make the dough. So this dough is composed of flour, water, and oil. Like last time, we are going to be using hot water to make this dough a little bit more pliable, a little bit softer. Half a cup of water, turn it on to about a medium high, and you wait until you see little bubbles just like last time. While we're waiting, we're going to go through the ingredient list for seasoning the pork filling. So over here we have some minced pork. You need to get the one that is like the finest minced ones possible. You can't see big chunks of meat. Chicken stock, minced ginger, sugar, sesame oil, white pepper, soy sauce, salt, some fish sauce, as well as some cooking wine. And that is it. How you can tell if the water is ready is when you start seeing these little bubbles forming at the bottom. That means it's about 70 degrees. So you are going to turn off the heat, bring it over to your dough, and we are ready for the next step. As usual, I'm going to be kneading the dough with my mom's method, which she calls like the snowflake method. Pour in the oil, add in our hot water. So she calls it the snowflake method because when you do this, apparently that little flour clump looks like snowflakes to her. I don't know what kind of snow she's been watching, but the benefit of doing it this way is that it's more or less mess-free. You won't get like flour sticking to your hands, and you can dump it out and knead when it is mostly incorporated. So depending on the brand of flour you're using, you might need a little bit more water. Our goal is to achieve a dough that is very, very soft when you knead it, but not sticky. The hot water makes this dough very pliable when you try to pleat it, and the oil makes it easier to knead into a thin layer without breaking. Roughly smooth, doesn't have to be perfect. Something like this is fine. We are going to wait for 30 minutes, and while we're waiting, we are going to work on our fillings. This next part is the secret to this recipe of how you get the soup inside the dumpling. So watch very closely because I definitely didn't the first time and I completely messed it up. So don't do what I did. First, we are going to season our pork with everything. In no particular order, you're going to put in all of your seasonings. So we did ginger, sugar, white pepper, salt, cooking wine, fish sauce, soy sauce. Oh, one note about the soy sauce. The best soy sauce to use for this is Maggi soy sauce. It's a brand of soy sauce that is a little bit more flavorful than the other ones. That's how you're going to get the best flavor. If you don't have it, normal one is fine too. This last one is sesame oil. So as you've noticed, kind of like pasta, we don't add salt to the dough itself. So it's very important that the filling is more flavorful than you think it should be. Because I'm using a leaner kind of meat, I'm going to be adding in some oil. Ideally, you want to find medium fat ground meat. But if you don't have it, this is a trick that you can use. Always stir in one direction to allow the meat to gain elasticity. And that's really what's going to help you incorporate the liquid in next. We are going to start adding in the liquid, but only a little bit at a time. So this much. And you want to keep stirring until you no longer see any of the liquid. It's important to be patient with this step and do it a little bit at a time. So that was a mistake I made when I first learned this technique from my mom. I thought like, oh, I just need to spin it a little bit more. So I dumped it all in. And what had happened was it kind of became this like wet meat consistency and made it really hard to wrap. If you put in too much liquid, what happens is the water molecule in the liquid is going to create a barrier between your chopstick and the meat, and you won't actually be able to incorporate it. The meat is kind of even changing color a little bit. It's a little bit paler, and it looks a lot more mushy than when we started. What we're doing right now is almost forcing the meat to temporarily retain all this liquid, which will be released when it's steamed and the meat contracts, and that's what's going to give your soup and meat kind of pocket inside of the dumpling. Okay, so now we have to be a little bit careful because it is becoming a lot thinner. So same thing, depending on the quality of the meat, the part of meat the ground meat is made from, you might not need that full amount of liquid in the recipe. So keep an eye on it. I'm gonna say this is a good amount, but I will check. 妈，帮我看一下，够不够？
你加了多少？
还没有全加进去，
还可以加，
可以全加吗？
全加。
So you know it's done when it reaches this very appetizing spam looking color and when it's sticky. We had about 200 grams of meat and we've incorporated about 3/4 cup of chicken stock. If you're feeling brave, you can go up for 1 cup, but for first time making this, I recommend stopping it at 3/4, kind of like this, because any more than that, it's going to be very difficult to wrap, but doable. My mom says she's done it, so next time I'm gonna go for that. All right, I think this is a safe level for me. So we still have 10 minutes until the dough is ready. So I'm going to show you how to make the pleats. We're not gonna try it on the dough just yet. I want you to get a piece of paper. I've been spending all morning thinking of how to teach this because, you know, at the end of the day, we eat with our eyes. You want your food to be photogenic. So I'm gonna teach you how to make your dumplings beautiful, and it just takes a little bit of practice, kind of like origami. Okay, so any pieces of paper will do, preferably a thinner one. What I want to first show you is what the pleats look like when it's in a straight line. The idea is to hold one edge with your thumb and your index, and you are going to take your left hand and move it just a smidge over, okay? You're going to pull up with your left hand, pull down with your right until you form this sort of Z shape, and you're going to take your right index, hold the tip, and push it down. All right, so it looks like this. It's a little Z. Now we're going to take our left hand, move it a smidge over, and you're going to repeat this. Push it up, pinch it down with your right hand, just like that. And when I'm overlapping, I'm not completely overlapping the first fold. I'm moving just a smidge to my left. So you see, it's like a little staircase, right? So what you get is kind of this accordion. What happens if we're pleating in a circle? You're going to make the Z and force this side down, kind of like this. Do you see that? So instead of aligning it perfectly, you're going to pinch it down like this. I started down here and I kept my finger here this whole time, and every time I pleated, I sort of only moved the tiniest bit. Even though we are pleating more and more, you don't want to kind of move your right hand with it because you'll get this, and you don't want your dough to fall apart. This sort of accordion situation, kind of like a tutu. If you can do this, the bun will be so much easier. So okay, I really hope that helps. That's the best method I can come up with. Yeah, so let's try it on the real things. This is kind of the texture you're looking for. You want to knead this until it is absolutely smooth. That looks good enough for me, pretty smooth. Okay, so you just want to roll it out into kind of a log. So really, to increase your chance of success at this one, you want to just be as precise as possible, and that includes cutting the pieces as evenly as possible. So I'm just trying to make sure that they're even in width. I'm going to use these lines to guide me. I'm going to go right down the middle. Cover it up with the towel. We've arrived at the first technical spot of this recipe, and that is rolling out the dough. So you do want one of these thin guys. Just take one out. So you want to squish it, roll it out once in one direction, turn it around in the other direction, and you get a circle. Flip it over. You want to take your right hand, put it at the base of your palm, take your index and thumb and pull it on the top like this. And you want to roll it in, pull it out, rotate. Roll it in, pull it out, rotate. And when you're rolling it in, the pressure is applied when you're pushing it in more than when you're pulling it out. And I'm only going in about maybe 40%, maybe 30% of the entire length of the circle, because you want to leave the middle part thicker than the edges. You want really, really thin edges for these dough. I will explain why later. Right now, just trust me. So once you get more fluent, you can kind of move it faster like this. But in the beginning, take it slow. There's no rush. And the whole time, you want to make sure we're working with a circle. So one reason for why it might not be round is when you rotate too much. So it might look like this. I push and I rotate like this. Okay? I'll show you what happens if you don't rotate it slowly. So say I'm like going really fast and then I realize, oh shoot, that is not a circle. That's okay. I want to elongate this side, right? So you basically find the side that you want to elongate, pull against it, and you just want to push it in really hard, pull it out, push it in really hard, pull it out, and then you flip it around, do the exact same thing on the other side, and then there, you kind of balance it out. As it gets bigger, I can't just hold on to the top when I'm rotating. I find it's the fastest if I kind of really stick my hand under, so I'm touching the center, like the base, kind of like this, and I'm really lifting it. I'm pushing, rotating, pushing, rotating. So the whole time, this is in the control of my left hand. So it's kind of a repeated action of pushing with my left hand, pulling it out, throw it, twisting my left wrist. Pushing, pulling it out, throw it, twisting my left wrist. Okay? And once you get the hang of it, you can go faster. So push, throw, twist. Push, throw, twist. Okay, so I have a handy dandy tool here for me. I'm aiming for a diameter of about 11.5 centimeters, which is about this length. If it's too big, then it's too thin and it will leak. If it's too tiny, then you won't be able to incorporate it in and you're just not going to be able to pleat it. Because I haven't touched the center at all, so it's still pretty thick, whereas my edges are very thin. So at this point, you want to flip it over, roll it over just once over the center, turn it over, same thing, back and forth. And now the middle is a little bit flatter, still thicker. The thickest part has to be in the bottom because this is going to be the base of the bun. And if it doesn't have that support, it's going to leak. Now we're only gonna work on the edges until we reach this size. A spoonful. And you want to plop it towards the top half. Because if you put it in the center, when you're folding in the beginning, it's pretty easy, right? But the more you fold, it's gonna start sliding and you're not gonna be able to close it. Make sure that your hand is right in front of you. So pretend these are your hands. All right, we're gonna pull this in, push this up, push down the triangle, okay, a little slant, and pinch it. And if you can see, I'm only pinching the top right here. Do you see that little pocket? I'm not touching that at all. And that's exactly what you want. Because if you pinch all of them, it's gonna be clumpy. You want to minimize overlapping the dough too much. All right, so now I'm gonna shift just a smidge over, push this in, overlap it, but not completely. So now I'm gonna gently lift this up, move it. So when you're actually making this, you don't want to let go. I'm just doing it to show. So push it in, pinch it down, push it in. Okay, so now, do you see I'm kind of getting stuck? that's a sign to move. And try your best not to lift your hand too much so that it doesn't start sliding out. So you can see I'm not letting go of any of the earlier plates. Even though they're all stuck together, they're kind of climbing up on my thumb, if that makes sense. And the farther along you get, the easier it gets, I find. So now I can kind of hold this and pick it up, just like that. All right, I'm almost at the edge and it looks like this right now. So now you don't have as much space, so just hold the very top, keep it lifted. Don't worry, it will close. Okay, one more. Try your best not to let it fall into the filling. All right, we have a little hole. Pull it up. Make sure that you pull it up farther than you think. If you just pinch the top, it's not enough, okay? So go a little bit lower and then pinch it. Because if any one of these has a hole, the water will come out. A lot of the times when people make this, they end up with like a really tall nub on the top. And when you bite that, it's just skin. Instead, you want to just pinch the skin against each other. But you do want to lift this up as if it's a little pocket so that this whole thing is kind of this round shape. You don't want to make it like this, okay? Now I can pinch, lift, pinch, lift, pinch, lift, pinch, lift, pinch, lift. Okay, I'm at the very end. You see this? I have a little hole. You're going to pinch it close at the very end, just like this. So some people, they like it to be like a pinpoint. I prefer it this way because I don't like that weird texture of a nub on the top. I think this looks kind of cute, but that is completely up to you. I kind of forgot to prepare my steamer. You want to line this and to keep the dumplings in here as soon as they're done. So I'm gonna quickly do that. Give me a sec. We have these ones because we're Asian and we steam things a lot. You don't have them. I think parchment paper is fine. Cheesecloth is fine. Maybe just putting it in a plate is fine. I've never done that, but yeah, I think it's okay. All right, we are ready. We're going to steam them. So I just have a wok. You can use any pot that's big enough for a steamer. Have it with boiling water on medium-high heat, and we're going to steam it for 10 minutes. Do not open it no matter what. And yeah, just wait for 10 minutes.